people can concentrate the task of nation building in those countries. Secondly, we've got these regional groupings, what we call RECs, the East African Community, the SADC, ECOWAS, and Maghreb, and so on. We want to ensure that these regional groupings actually work properly.
To a different country, Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki on Saturday met Botswana's newly elected President Duma Boko in Gaborone. The two leaders discussed a range of issues, including areas of cooperation like climate change, tourism, trade in coffee and tea, beef farming, development of horticulture and floriculture, mining, cooperatives, management, and regional peace, security, and stability. Kindiki, who was representing President William Ruto, attended Duma's inauguration on Friday. During the meeting, he noted that Kenya considers Botswana an ally in continental economic development, peace and security, tourism, education, health, and renewable energy. Kindiki further said the two countries have shared experiences in politics, democracy, development, and trade that dates back to the independence struggle.
All right.
The disruptive nature of climate change effects in terms of huge humanitarian crisis in the form of floods, or devastating floods, or even prolonged famine, decimation of livestock and wildlife, the displacement of populations, disruption of livelihoods, traditional livelihoods like around agriculture. So we are looking at, even as we look at complex security threats like terrorism and organized crime, climate change is no longer, in the view of President Ruto, it's no longer food security, agriculture, humanitarian matter. It is a national security, international security problem.
She has been giving you accurate briefs about the country, about the challenges, about the possible solutions, and how we can work together. And it now remains for us to get down to doing what has to be done in the shortest possible time, so that we don't just operate at the level of rhetoric. We need to get some action. So thank you.
Now, President William Ruto has reached out to the United States President-elect Donald Trump to engage on possible areas of extending the bilateral ties between the two nations. Following Trump's victory in the recently held U.S. election, Kenya's trade and investment deals that began during the Joe Biden administration have been thrown into uncertainty. Now, President Ruto pointed out areas of mutual interest between the two nations, such as investment opportunities, security, and good governance. He also briefed Trump on the multinational security support mission in Haiti, led by Kenyan forces. The mission, which began in June, has been key in trying to contain the gang warfare in the Caribbean nation. The Biden era has been in support of the Haiti mission and had pledged up to 38.5 billion Kenyan shillings. However, with the Republican leader set to take office in January next year, the whole operation could be in jeopardy. And briefly, we'll be looking into that special feature we have for you tonight on Kenya versus US elections, what lessons we can learn, so stick around for that. Now, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has said they will be heading to court to block the implementation of any public-private partnership, PPP, that involves the Adani Conglomerates Group. Musyoka says he will be heading to the corridors of courts together with the Democratic Action Party of Kenya leader Eugene Wamalwa to halt the JKIA leasing deal, which raised eyebrows across the nation. The High Court had temporarily suspended the proposed plans to lease the JKIA airport to Indian Farm after a petition was filed by the Kenyan Human Rights Commission and the Law Society of Kenya.
Tunaenda kwa mahakama kupinga Adani. Adani tunampinga. If you may not know this, kama wakili have the right to make appearance, and this time I chose a senior counsel to lead the team ya kukataa na uwanja wetu wa ndege usiende na mtu anaitwa ndani, because hiyo ni respect ya Wakenya. Wafanyikazi wote wa Kenya wanafanya Kenya Airports Authority na kwingineko wako katika hatari ya kutojua watafanya nini. Nini mnataka tuamini Bwana Kanja kwamba ati watu bado wanajificha na wanajua haki yao ya kikatiba? Ni vizuri tuambiwe ukweli, kama watoto pia waliuawa kwa mikono ya polisi. Tunataka na sio Kenya, dunia nzima. Hata waziri wa mambo ya nje wa nchi ya Marekani ambako juzi wamefanya maajabu yao, wakamchagua President Trump. Ni ile nasema hewa inabadilika kila mahali. Blinken amempigia Ruto simu akamwambia mambo ya kuchukua watu, kushika watu kiholela, ingawaji chini ya serikali ya Biden ambayo iko sasa hivi, itakuwa mamlaka hadi tarehe 20 Januari. Biden atatoka kwa mamlaka, Trump atarudi kwa mamlaka. Wanamwambia hii tabia kushika Wakenya ovyo ovyo na kuwaweka korokoroni na wengine kuuawa kinyume ya sheria lazima ikome. Hawa ni watu wa nje. Lakini sisi wenyewe wa Kenya tunasemaje? Wangapi wanasema tutaki vijana wauawe tena? Wakiuawa, Ruto and his government will be held responsible.
The Coast Civil Society Network for Human Rights wants Parliament to fast-track the enactment of the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill of 2024 for counties to carry out their functions. Members of the National Assembly and the Senate differed on the content of the bill. The amended bill from the National Assembly reduces the allocation to counties by 20.12 billion shillings from 400 billion in the Division of Revenue Act 2024 to 380 billion. Now, the Commission's chairperson, Zedekiah Dika, says counties are unable to make their budgets to completion because the Division of Revenue Bill is not complete. The network also wants functions and resources left at the national government to be devolved. The Attorney General was urged to fast-track the transfer of functions.
All counties in Kenya today are unable to make their budgets to completion. Why? Because the Division of Revenue Bill 2024 is not complete. You remember the Gen Z protest and the subsequent withdrawal of the initial bill that was there, that was bringing around 400 million to the counties. We ended up with a process where the National Assembly and the Senate were unable to agree on the contents of the Division of Revenue Bill. So we want to ask Parliament that they must fast-track the process of ensuring that the Division of Revenue Bill 2024 comes to completion so that counties are able to complete the process of budgeting. There are functions and resources that were left at national level and they are not come to counties.
Yangu tu ni kwa wananchi wa Kenya ni kuweza kuwahimiza na kuwaambia kwamba watambue nguvu ambazo wamepewa na katiba. Wamepewa nguvu muhimu sana ya kwamba the power belongs to the people of Kenya. Na kwamba wananchi especially wa Mombasa wa take up those spaces, wa take up that power. Si kuacha kila kitu inafanywa kiholela holela. Tukiongelea mambo ya public participation, wananchi wakae wakijua public participation si ya county government ama ya governor. Public participation ni masuala ambayo yanawahusu. Kwa hivyo yangu ni kuhimiza kwamba wananchi wa Mombasa, wananchi wa Kenya ya kwamba wajue hizo nguvu na wachukue hizo nguvu. Tutaweza tu kubadilisha county government yetu ya Mombasa ama Kenya kwa jumla ikiwa tutaweza kutambua nguvu ambazo tuko nazo. Muhimu kwamba kwanza kabisa ni kuwa tuweze kupata information. Unajua ukiwa na information unakuwa na nguvu zaidi ya kuquestion.
Mombasa County Governor Abdul Swamad Nasir has expressed grave concerns over the continued delay in the disbursement of funds from the exchequer to county governments, a situation that has now extended to 3 months. Speaking in Nyali, where he distributed checks worth 25 million shillings to beach management units, the governor emphasized the detrimental impact of these delays or the smooth functioning of devolved units. Governor Nasir noted that while county governments are grappling with cash flow constraints due to delayed disbursements, certain leaders have been making misleading statements suggesting that counties are quote-unquote returning unspent funds to the national treasury.
Nimesikia katika mtandao wengine wakiongea ati fedha za county ziliregea. Mimi nataka kuambia wale wenye kuongea lugha hiyo, wacha fedha za county atikuwa zimeregea. Sahi tunaingia mwezi wa 3, serikali kuu haijatuma pesa katika county ya Mombasa. Wacha ile kusema ati sijui pesa zinaregea. Urongo, utapeli, lugha ambao kwamba haina maana, lugha ya kuchochea. Regeleeni na muanze kuuliza kwa nini sahihi tunaingia mwezi wa 3 serikali ya kaunti ya Mombasa haijapokea fedha yoyote kutoka kwa wale ambao wako katika serikali kuu. Tumeelewana mpaka hapo? Hata ikawa ni Kenya nzima, Mombasa tujigambe, leo madaktari wote wanalipwa mshahara on time. Mombasa tujigambe, wafagiaji wote wanalipwa on time. Mombasa tujigambe, wale ambao kwamba ni makontrakta walojenga zile barabara wanalipwa haki yao on time. Mombasa tujigambe, hizi fedha tunazitoa licha ya kuwa pesa hazijakuja kutoka kwa serikali kuu. Tusiambiane mambo ati sijui ni mambo ya watu wote, mambo ya watu wote. Angalieni kwengine vile ambavyo kwamba manasu wana strike. Angalieni vile mambo watu wanavoteseka. Tumeelewana? Tumefahamikiana? Tutayapambana yote, na wale ambao kwamba wenye kutuma tunawaambia watafutilieni vijana kazi, msiwatume vijana waharibu programu yao ya Mombasa yangu bure.
Farmers in Mbeere North constituency in Embu County have been urged to take advantage of the rains that the Meteorological Department has predicted to be short. Speaking when he distributed free seeds at the DCC's office in Mbeere North, Area Member of Parliament Geoffrey Ruku told farmers to plant drought-resistant seeds that will mature on time before the end of the rains. He lauded the national government for listening to his plea and providing seeds to his constituents who are small-scale farmers in the semi-arid Mbeere. Siakago ACC Elizabeth Ngesa advised farmers not to sell or cook seeds since they are treated with chemicals.
Hii mvua sio mingi, ni mvua fupi. Tukiweza kuchukua hii nafasi tupande mbegu ambazo zinaweza kuwa vizuri katika eneo hili letu, ambao saa zingine hatuwezi pata mvua ya kutosha, itakuwa ni kitu jema kwa familia zetu. Tutaweza kufuna kwa sababu hii mvua ni mvua fupi, imechelewa. Saa hii ndio tunapata kidogo. Kwa hivyo tukipanda ndengu, tupande mbaazi, tupande kunde, tupande sorghum, itakuwa ni vema kuliko kupanda mahindi ambayo tunajua ya kwamba mvua ikisha pita itakauka.
Now to our feature tonight, the world witnessed what was referred to as a historic election in the United States that pitted a former president and a convicted felon, Donald Trump, against Vice President Kamala Harris, who has written history becoming the first Asian American to hold office as vice president. Donald Trump eventually won, leaving a bitter taste in the mouth of Democrats. The win sent shockwaves across the world and Kenya, who were engaged in discussions on the speed they took to count over 120 million votes and much more. On our news feature tonight, we take lessons from US on how they conducted the elections and the big differences between Kenya and America. Let's have a conversation about elections, and in particular, United States and Kenya elections. Like many countries, election throws the nation into a 24/7 electioneering period, with media outlets thrust in a news programming like no other. While Kenya and the US have enjoyed diplomatic ties that cut across various sectors, with one of the most powerful nations on earth prepping for elections, well, the rest of the world gets to have a front row seat and watch or take notes. On our special feature tonight, I'd love us to take a look at the big differences between Kenya and US elections, and what we can learn from it. Let's talk about political party affiliations. Now in Kenya, the political landscape has been in a constant change ever since 2002. A president comes in through a political party with freedom to form alliances or coalitions with other parties or as an independent candidate. Some parties have stood the test of time while others were crumbled. In practical instances, in 2013, former President Uhuru Kenyatta and the then Deputy President William Ruto came into office through TNA Party and URP respectively. And after the first term in office, a new party was formed, Jubilee Party. Now, a Kenyan is not necessarily a member of a political party unless they choose to. And most are not interested in understanding the vision or mission of parties unless during the rigorous campaign election period where candidates pitch their manifesto agendas. In the United States, the political system also operates under a multi-party system, with the Democratic and Republican parties the most influential players. The electoral system in the US is called a two-party system. This means that two parties dominate the political field in all three levels of government. These two parties are the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Other parties are often generally termed third parties. Now, the feel of political parties is a little different. Voters would speak of being part of the liberals or conservative based on even how their generation voted. And the two dominant parties have been existing from as early as 1796. So they have been consistent with that. And the last four presidents in the US have been from either of these two. Former President George W. Bush was from the Republican, Barack Obama was a Democrat, Donald Trump from the Republican, and Joe Biden from the Democrats. Let's speak about presidential nominations. So how do the two major parties choose their presidential candidates? Well, in the United States, electing a president is a long process which consists of two major election processes. First, the primary elections take place, in which presidential candidates for the two parties are elected. Second, when the candidates for each party have been officially selected, the process of the actual presidential election begins. If the incumbent president decides to attempt re-election, his party's primaries will often be more or less a formality with little competition from rival candidates. The primaries take place from February through June, and during this time, elections move from state to state. The delegates are at this point mandated with voting for their candidate, to which they are assigned when the parties hold their conventions at the end of the primaries. The last primary election is held in the beginning of June, and after this, all that is left is the parties' conventions in July or August, in which presidential candidates for each party are officially appointed. In Kenya, the process is not far off. History has it that political party leaders are often the presidential candidates in an election. And independent candidates also get an opportunity given that they meet set requirements. In 2022, presidential candidates included UDA party leader William Ruto, ODM party leader Raila Odinga, Roots party leader George Wajakoya, and Agano party leader David Mwaure, among others. Party nominations are also done, arguably, as a formality with little to no competition from rivals, and this is done 4 months prior to the elections. Once granted the party ticket, a presidential nominee will be on the ballot. After confirmation of party tickets, the candidates intensify their campaigns. In the two countries, campaigns typically kick off even before the party primaries are held. Campaigns are an expensive affair. One of the biggest campaign platforms is the presidential debate, where the contenders are tasked to defend and submit their plans and agendas when they get to office. This happens in both countries, and the mode of campaigning in Kenya has always been the traditional campaign rallies with huge crowds, the popular of all, as well as engagements in town hall meetings with a particular sect group like women, persons with disabilities, and the youth. Interestingly, in 2022, contrary to 2016, the more traditional campaign manner saw a twist with additional of digital media and television adverts. This modern addition was adapted even by aspirants from other elective positions and not just for the presidency. This is expected to evolve in future elections. Now, in the United States, it's a mix of huge campaign rallies, meetings with particular sector groups, and the traditional media like news and television shows and programs. Candidates also tend to be on podcasts, social media influencers pages, as well as comedy shows. In a bid to portray the candidates as human and reachable, you'll often see them at shops, malls, food joints, even barber shops. The campaigns also attract endorsements from celebrities who have a massive following. Like I said, campaigns are an expensive affair. Now, in the United States, candidates mobilize for funding for their own campaigns, even the incumbents. For instance, when Kamala Harris joined the race, the campaign accumulated $81 million on the first day from donations. After debating Donald Trump, Harris's campaign received $47 million from 600,000 people. On the other hand, Trump's campaign committee raised $388 million in total between January 2023 and October 16, 2024. This facilitates their travel, rental spaces, media productions and advertising, logistics, publishing, and even consultation. In Kenya, candidates also fund their own campaign, and the figures are rarely given out to the public. The candidates may be funded through donations, friends, and wealthy individuals. However, you are likely to see the spending through travel, rallies, publications, media, and music productions. When all is said and done, the people have the voice. Now, voting is different for both US and Kenya. In Kenya, the Kenyan people decide the vote at the ballot on election date and not a minute before. A winning candidate must garner the 50+1% threshold set by the electoral agency. If not achieved, there are runoffs. Voting is a one-day affair, and counting is at least a two-day affair, to which the winner will be declared president-elect. In America, the voting process is long. Early voting is open at least 2 weeks prior to the election date, where Americans can begin casting their ballots in advance, usually via postal voting or in person, usually in designated early voting polling stations. In other US elections, candidates are elected directly by popular vote. But the president and the vice president are not elected directly by citizens. Instead, they are chosen through the Electoral College process. So what is the Electoral College? Well, all 50 states gets as many electors as it has members of Congress, that is both House and the Senate. Currently, there are 538 electors, and for a candidate to be declared the winner, they have to garner a simple majority of 270. After a voter casts their ballot for president, the vote goes to a statewide tally. In 48 states and Washington, D.C., the winner gets all the electoral votes for that state. In states like Maine and Nebraska, they assign the electors using a proportional system. In most cases, a projected winner is announced on election night in November after the vote. But the actual Electoral College vote takes place in mid-December when the electors meet in their states. In the end, whoever wins the US elections that were cast in November is sworn into office in January 20th. Very specific, right? Well, in Kenya, the president-elect is sworn in on the second Tuesday of September after elections are held in August. Right, interesting facts right then. One more person I'd love to really appreciate, of course, is our consulting partner, that is John Kinuthia, who also gave his input on this particular script on just some of the things that we had to input, and to all the production team, the guys that set the camera, the guys that did the stage design, really say thank you as well. And in case you've missed this and you'd love to rewatch it, you can do so across our social media platforms, that is on YouTube. Just go there and we'll be uploading this any minute from now so that you can watch it as well. Yet again, just to get the facts right on just the big differences between Kenya and US in terms of elections, and especially the presidential election. So up next, sports. A day after the High Court in Kitui suspended the FKF branch's election that was expected to be held on Saturday, mixed feelings have been expressed by different candidates who are gunning for various seats. In Bungoma County, for instance, the candidate for the position of chairman, together with that of Secretary General Dennis Nyongesa and Alfred Makoha, respectively, have condemned the move which aims to destroy the election and leadership of football in the country. The two are waiting for the directions of the court on Tuesday to determine the fate of the elections, which they say threatens to disrupt grassroots football.
Jafurahia na lile tendo ambalo limefanyika la kuhairisha uchaguzi. Uchaguzi ni njia moja ya kuweka viongozi katika kusimamia kandanda. Na ule alienda kotini, kwangu naona ni watu waoga sana. Na wamefanya tendo mbaya. Sisi tumejiandaa, tumezunguka mwezi mzima na delegates. Hata leo tulikuwa tumejaribu kusanya delegates pamoja. Kesho tumalize hii shughuli mapema. Lakini mtu anaamuka tu na anaenda kotini. It's really sad. And for football purposes, naona hatuendi vizuri.
Sisi tuko tayari hata uchaguzi huu usimamishwe kwa muda gani. By 31st December huu mwaka lazima hizi kura zikuwe zimepigwa. So hata wakimbie juu chini, wafanya namna gani, hii uchaguzi lazima ifanyike. Na mimi I trust kwa our justice systems and our institutions. They have made good decisions on such issues. So najua ikifika Jumanne, a good judgment will be made. Ukiangalia sana sana unajua image ya Kenya, especially kama uchaguzi umepangwa. Kama constitution inasema baada ya miaka 4 tarehe fulani inafaa kura zifanyike. Msipofanya hivyo, the image yenye tuna portray kwa the outside world si image mzuri. Ukiangalia Kenya tumekuwa na bans in the recent past because of mismanagement of our football in Kenya. Sasa tukianza tena hii maneno ambayo tuliona, unajua sasa tufanye uchaguzi so that tuingize a good team in office from the county mpaka kwa national office so that we can steer football ya Kenya to the right direction.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we call it a wrap tonight. Thank you very much for watching EBN Weekend Edition. I believe that you are up to date and duly informed on what is making headlines across the country. Allow me to wrap it up at that point. Thank you for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic evening. Stay warm and a blessed Sunday ahead.